Welcome to Truth Uncompromised. I am your host, Rhonda. Join us every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Truth is peace. Truth is justice and freedom to love, live, and be. Music provided by SourceVibrations.com. All right, family. Welcome to the Truth Uncompromised show. Tonight is Thursday, October 20th. I am your host, Rhonda. We have a great show planned for you tonight. A lot of stuff jumping off in the news this week as usual. The topic tonight is the Universe Master Code, how sounds, shapes, and numbers create our reality. So this is actually a follow-up from last week's show when we started talking about the Mandela effect and parallel universes. Have we experienced a death? So we kind of got a little deep into metaphysics, which I knew we would. And then someone, I think it was Brother Fred and Brother Wendell, hit me to another brother, and I instantly, it popped in my mind that we needed to do this particular show tonight. So I'm really excited about that. So we're going to chop it up with that. We'll start off with the news, get into a little of the main topic, and I'm going to open up the phone lines early tonight so you can join the conversation as well. So with that said, let me see. I'm not sure if Brother Wendell is making it with us tonight. Let me see here. I don't see you, Brother Wendell. So I might just go ahead and get started. I'm not seeing you, brother. So you'll have to hit me up. I could be totally overlooking you. So just hit me up. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and get started on the news. All right, family. So let's get started. First of all, we are going to start with politricking, the political news. So some of you probably already seen this. This was actually a little bit left over from last week, but I hadn't had a chance to discuss it. So I definitely want to discuss it tonight. It was floating around on Facebook. So this particular article is called End of Time Headlines. And the title reads, Breaking News. The UN has decided that Jews have no connection to Jerusalem. The United Nations UNESCO, I guess that's UNESCO body, has passed a resolution put forth by the Palestinians denying all connection between Jews and Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. Prime Minister Netanyahu to say that Israel has no connection to the Temple Mount and the Western Wall is like saying China has no connection to the Great Wall. Of course, Netanyahu would say that, trying to, keep up and perpetuate the lie. UNESCO has decided that there is no Jewish connection to Jerusalem and the Temple Mount following Palestine's initiative on Thursday. There were 26 countries who abstained from the vote, including Serbia and Turkmenistan. I may not be pronouncing it right, while 24 countries supported the initiative and 6 voted against it. It should be noted that not a single European nation voted for the initiative. The countries of France, Sweden, Slovenia, India, Argentina, and Togo at first were going to vote for the resolution saying that Jews have no connection to Jerusalem, but were convinced to abstain from voting in the end. Okay, so there you have it. This article came out of something called End of Time Headlines, and it doesn't have a date on it. Oh, yes, it does. It came out last week on October 13th. So there you have it. That's pretty huge for that particular vote to have even come up, period, in the UN, because just a little quick history on that for those that do not know. The whole Palestinian thing with Palestine having a big issue with it's not real or Israel is because back in 1948, after World War II, Britain decided that they were going to carve out part of Palestine and give it to these quote, quote, Jews. And they established the state of Israel. So that knocked, of course, a lot of the Palestinians off of their land who had been living there for generations. So as the story goes on and on, you all know that there's constant fighting between Hamas, the Palestinians, and Israel because of this fact. And in addition to that, Israel has been backed up by the U.S. Corp, Britain, and the rest of the European nation with weapons and military protection, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in the midst of that, Israel or the Jewish folk have steadily started expanding and taking away the Palestinians' land. So all along, the Palestinians have been saying that those particular folks that are calling themselves Jews are not the Jews. They are Khazarians. So those of you that have studied these such things, and it definitely, if you have been with us for quite a while, we do know that the folks that are calling themselves Jews over in Israel are not indeed the true Israelites. So that is very huge for that to even be put on the UN ballot. And that just goes to show you what particular time that we're in, where you're seeing these different nations that are forming against the status quo, which is the U.S. Corp and the European Union tearing down those walls. And China and Russia had a lot to do with that. So the U.S. Corp and definitely European Union, which are all of those different nations in Europe, have lost a lot of power. So we'll continue to keep watching it, but I found that very, very interesting for that to even make the UN ballot. Okay, so other thing that happened, two other things happened this week in politicking. The first thing was Prez O, a couple of days ago, this came out of RT News. Actually, I guess this was yesterday. And the headline reads, Obama finally upgrades Russia from regional power to important country. So the article goes on to say, when it comes to commenting on Russia, Barack Obama and facts have long been strangers. That's funny, but again, this is coming from RT News. But Tuesday's complete reversal of his previous opinion on the country's strength was astounding. The U.S. president has had a few notable things to say about Russia in recent years. For instance, how it's a regional power that doesn't make anything with its economy in tatters. which is isolated. He also believed for a long time that it had no immigrants despite being the second most popular migration destination in the world. This week, Obama has suddenly changed his stance, and Russia has been upgraded, in his estimation, from a puny Danny DeVito to a towering Arnold Schwarzenegger. He told reporters in Washington how we think that Russia is a large, important country with a military that is second only to ours. Now, while his new stance is a bit more accurate, not to mention sure to go down well in Moscow, it also confirms how all over the shop Obama is when it comes to understanding Russia. So it goes on to say that the fragile history between Russia and the United States, but they're kind of criticizing Prez O because at one point the U.S. did kind of turn around their relationship with Russia, and they kind of noted where Franklin D. Roosevelt traveled and him and Stalin was talking behind the scenes on certain things, and then Truman did the same thing, and then how Slick Willie or Clinton and Boris Yeltsin, I hadn't heard about him in a minute, Boris Yeltsin. Anyway, how Clinton and Yeltsin had developed a relationship. And so it goes on to say, anyway, back to Obama's direct comments on Russia's status. His regional powers assertion always seemed ludicrous in light of his own engagement with it. After all, Russia were truly restricted to its own hinterland while negotiate together on Syria, not to mention Iran, where the Moscow-aided atomic deal is widely considered the current administration's finest foreign policy achievement. Plus, how comical anyway was referring to owner of the planet's preeminent nuclear arsenal as a local actor. Then there's the idea of Russia not making anything. Where does Obama think that they got all those weapons we see on display in Syria? Or did the president ever manage to explain how American astronauts get to the International Space Station these days? Because even school children know that they hitch a ride on Russia's craft. So the article kind of goes on to state the many important things that Russia is doing. It even makes mention of how Russia's economy is a lot more stronger than the United States. And he said, let's not forget the isolation argument either. A cursory glance at Putin's website shows how in the past 8 days he has had private and personal meetings. Now this is where it's going to get good, child. Now this Putin. He did have private and personal meetings with the following: South Africa's Jacob Zuma, China's Xi Jinping, India's Modi, Brazil's Timur, Armenians, Sargayan, Turkey's Tayyip, and Venezuela's Madrigal. He also conducted phone calls with Germany's Angela Merkel, France's Prez, and the new United States Secretary Antonio. This is not the diary of a leader of an isolated country, is it? So just real quick, this article states in the past 8 days, Putin has been behind closed doors having conversation with these nations. Now, all of the First Nations they named off: South Africa, China, Brazil. No, I'm missing one. I guess I'm not. But anyhow, those nations are a part of, in India, my bad, in India. Those nations are a part of BRICS, which it is said that is the new financial system that has been stood up to replace the Western system and the petrodollar. So what was interesting about this is that Germany seems to be behind the scenes talking to Russia, and so does France. And it also says that he's in conversations with the new UN guy. Now, we told you all a couple of weeks that the UN was being taken over by China. So hopefully, those of you that talk about the reset, what's going to happen with the reset, yada, 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 and I always scream, I don't think the reset is going to be what we think it's going to be, that somebody's going to come out and make an announcement and say the dollar is dead. I think the reset is going to happen like we keep seeing in these different articles with them telling you that BRICS are handing out new loans to these nations. New nations are signing trade agreements with BRICS. We saw in the news where China is taking over the UN. The UN has gotten a new leader. So those are the signs to me that a quote, quote, reset is happening. Okay, and for Perez to finally form his lips to say, well, yeah, I guess Russia got a little bit of importance, is huge. So we'll continue to watch that. But I do want the family also to be aware and keep that in mind when you hear stories like that. That is clear indications of that's what, to me, a true reset will be. All right, so the other thing in the news with politricking is this story is a twofold. Now, the first one I'm about to go into, we talked for the last couple of weeks that the Philippine press has been clowning. He's straight up been clowning. First of all, he started with a couple of weeks ago calling Prez the son of a whore. And then he came out and said a few other things that Prez don't tell him what the hell to do, this, that, and the third. So now, actually, today, this article came out, and this is out of Reuters, and it's saying that the Philippine press announcing that he's separating from the United States. So it said Philippine press Rodrigo Duterte said on Thursday he was announcing his separation from the United States. Duterte made the comment at a business forum in the presence of Chinese Vice Premier at Beijing's Great Hall of the People during a 4-day state visit to China. So that's the end of that article. So the press of Philippines was kind of pumping us up, giving us indication that it was deuces to the United States. He was basically telling Prezzo to go somewhere. You don't tell me what the hell to do. I'm not scared of you. I had seen a couple of articles besides that behind the scenes where he had been in talks with China to get different financing, China to back them on different things. So it didn't come to a surprise to me when he finally came public and said that they are cutting ties with the United States. So now those of you that follow behind the scenes on how the U.S. corporate structures are set up and how they incorporated many of these government agencies, well, they're calling them government agencies, but they're really corporations, how they incorporated. First, they started incorporating in Puerto Rico, and then I know Philippines was also one of the places. And don't quote me on this, and when I open up the phone lines in a few, if somebody knows this, please correct me on this. But when the United States court kept incorporating, because what they would do when they would go bankrupt, they would shut that particular, if people said two things. I do know for sure when they go bankrupt, they would shut down that particular corporation and they would start up a new one. And they would change the name slightly. And if you want to trace how this goes, all you have to do is go to like Duns and Bradstreet, and you will see how the United States of America has different charter numbers. And I ran across something, and I'll have to dig it up, where I found the first charter was, I think that was right around 1900s or the end of 1800s. But anyhow, like 1871. Anyhow, so we do know that every time they go bankrupt, they'll spin up another company, and they've been incorporating overseas. Okay, so they move like to Puerto Rico. I know they use Philippines, and who the hell else knows where else they move. So that was one thing we do know for sure. We can trace the paperwork behind that. So then other people say that they're also using those places too to kind of shift around where they're authorized from a charter perspective. So I'm saying all that to say that's very, very interesting that we know that they've been incorporating and doing business in the Philippines, and then all of a sudden the Philippine leader is basically telling them to go on with their bull crap, and that they're officially breaking away from the U.S. So that's huge, and to me, that is another sign that the world has definitely moved away from the Western economy. And what everybody keeps asking about, when is the reset going to happen? When is the reset going to happen? These particular things are showing you that a reset is indeed underway. Okay, so that's all we have for Politrickett. So we're going to move on to things that make you go, There was quite a few things going on this week. Again, Mars has been in the news. I've seen Mars in the news several little times. Trying to find where, doggone it, family, I can't find that Mars article. Anyhow, they talked about how one of the probes landed upon Mars. I want to say it was today, and supposedly something broke off on it. But the important part by that is why I'm even bringing it up, is because over the last 2 months, they've been putting out in the media, and this is in the mainstream media, about them wanting to colonize Mars. And then in the alternative news media, I've been seeing stories that they're really trying to, the quote elite, the cabal, are really trying to get up off the planet. And they're using Mars as one of their particular destinations. So again, Mars continues to still be in the news. And so us that's in the quote metaphysics community, or whether you want to call us conspiracy theorists, whatever the hell you want to call us, have been hearing for years that the United Snakes has already been to Mars. Now, I personally don't think they went to Mars the traditional way with no rocket, because how you're going to get past the asteroid belt, or as we study in the book of Inky, the Hamlet bracelet. I think they did it through some type of portal, and or they had folks remote viewing. Now, in addition to that, we've also heard stories of this one dude that was talking about how Prez already been to Mars. So that kind of resonated in my mind this week when I keep hearing these stories about Mars. And if it's true that Prez O has already been to Mars, then it would be quite appropriate for them to start talking about, in the public eye, colonizing Mars and going to Mars, this, that, and the third. So I ran across that clip about Prez O supposedly going to Mars, and this one is entitled "White House Denies CIA Teleported Obama to Mars." And so this is off of a YouTube channel, Hallways Over Always. So I'm going to play the clip. It's only 5 minutes long. I know we talked about Prez O and this doggone going to Mars several times. So I did want to give the family a glimpse of this. I'm going to play this clip, and then I'm going to come back, and then we're going to open up the phone lines and continue on. So here we go, family.
White House denies CIA teleported Obama to Mars. From Wired Magazine. Oh, this is rich. Forget Kenya, never mind the secret madrasas. The sinister, shocking truth about Barack Obama's past lies not in East Africa, but in outer space. As a young man in the early 1980s, Obama was part of a secret CIA project to explore Mars. The future president teleported there along with the future head of DARPA. That's the assertion, at least, of a pair of self-proclaimed time-traveling, universe-exploring government agents. And this could be what we've been talking about with this time travel stuff here, folks. Andrew DiBassaggio and William Stillings insist that they once served as chrononauts at DARPA's behest, traversing the boundaries of time and space. They swear. A youthful Barack Obama was one of them. Perhaps this all sounds fantastical, absurd, and more than a little nuts. We couldn't agree more. That's one of the reasons why we love conspiracy theories. The more awesomely insane, the better. Each week during 2012, when the Mayans tell us to expect the apocalypse, Danger Room will peel back a new layer of crazy to expose those oh-so-cleverly hidden machinations powering this doomed place of existence. Welcome back to Tinfoil Tuesday. According to Bassaggio and Stillings, Obama isn't just lying about his identity, he's lying about his military service record, too. While his political opponents in 2008 attacked him for never serving, in truth, he was concealing his participation in a hidden CIA intergalactic program hosted at a California community college in 1980. Officially, the White House says Obama never went to Mars, only if you count watching Marvin the Martian. Tommy Vietor, the spokesman for the National Security Council, tells Danger Room, but that's exactly what a secret chrononaut wants you to believe. Obama wasn't the only one making the otherworldly voyage, as Barry Soetoro, the 19-year-old Obama, was one of 10 youths selected to secretly teleport to and from Mars, forming a band of interplanetary teen titans. Regina Dugan, the director of DARPA, was another member. That's just strange that they would just throw in the head of DARPA would just be thrown in there. You know, somebody's going to make up something like that, wouldn't throw in someone who would be a real honest-to-God, contender. That's who that would be. Wow. There might be something to this, man. Wouldn't surprise me in the least bit. Would it you? I mean, my God, look at everything we already know. Between 1981 and 1983, Obama is supposed to have visited Mars twice by way of a teleportation chamber called a jump room. Bassaggio, a fellow chrononaut, told the website Exopolitics that he saw Obama walk back to the jump room from across the Martian terrain. To acknowledge his comrade, Obama is said to have told Bassaggio, "We're here," with some sense of fatalism. It's not known exactly what Obama did on Mars. Socializing Martian healthcare, perhaps, building a birth certificate printing press. His mission was a perilous one, according to Bassaggio and Stillings. The CIA wished to establish a defense regime protecting the Earth from threats from space, as well as a legal claim to territorial sovereignty, making Obama something of a Martian conquistador. Presumably, Obama's CIA handlers needed him to acclimate Martian humanoids and animals to their presence in order to secure the U.S.-Martian alliance. We'll bet you weren't even aware of Martian animals. Simply put, your task is to be seen and not eaten. An elder chrononaut, retired Army Major General Ed Dames, is alleged to have told a young Barack Obama. You can scoff the idea of Obama on Mars, but it explains a lot. Obviously, the birth certificate controversy is a side effect of Obama forgetting to sufficiently establish his fake identity as he learned to manipulate time and space. Dugan had a demonstrated record of supporting space travel. The jump room must be broken, and who else but a man accustomed to keeping the country's most explosive secret would be comfortable waging so many undeclared wars? Ignore Basaggio and Stillings at your own peril. If Obama is reelected, the U.S. is finally colonizing Mars. What a weird article. Why would Wired dedicate, the time to even run that article if it's just hogwash and there's nothing to it? And that's just bizarre. Totally bizarre. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, man. When that's what they're putting up as news stories. I mean, there's something going on. They're planning something, man. Something big. Again, I don't know what, but there's definitely something in the works.
All right. So, again, that particular YouTube video was called White House Denies CIA Teleported Obama to Mars - Wired, and that was from a YouTube channel called Hallways OV Always ALWAYS. So I found it interesting, and that particular YouTube clip, that was before Press O was reelected back in, when the hell was he whenever he was reelected. Shit, I didn't forget. So that was in between that time. And so I found it interesting that, number one, they were stating that they were trying to colonize Mars, and he threw in there something about Mars being sovereign, and they were really, what he was getting at, they were trying to create a treaty with Mars, okay, and that Obama had got to Mars through jump rooms, or that's really what they call through the portals or teleportation, like Star Trek joint. So I'm going to open up the phone lines. Hold on a second, family. Okay, so press *6 to get in the queue, *6, and okay, let me do 256, and let me see here. 256, your line is open.
Thank you so much. Now, who wants to bash me last week? But anyway.
Who was bashing you, Sister Mira? Come on now.
Wendell, who's absent tonight.
What did he say? I don't think he bashed you.
He said, she had her drink on and she probably snoozing.
No, that was me in his defense. I don't know if I said drink on, but I said I know she probably sleep.
Okay, so I really enjoyed all the callers that participated last week. They were so interesting, all their comments. They are so smart.
Absolutely.
5777. Oh my goodness.
I know.
That show was off the chain. I had to go back and listen to it again.
Wow. Well, good deal. We missed you last week because one of the brothers said, I beat Sister Mira. I said, well, she's not here tonight, so, technically you really didn't beat her, but.
I mean, I just decided to sit back and listen. I'm not going to chime in tonight. And that's what I did. I decided to just sit back and listen, and it was so, all the callers had so, I mean, they're really smart. I mean, they're studying. They know
yes, they
all
are.
This. So anyway, I just wanted to mention my trip out to Walmart this week.
Oh, hell, here go the Walmart story. Anybody that's new to us, I don't like Walmart, but the family, y'all continues to go up in there and patronize regular Walmart Brother Wendell with his pack of draws, everybody else with their supplies. So we always have a running joke about Walmart. But okay, go ahead on, Sister Mira. What you go to Walmart for, my dear?
So before I say that, a nice sister gave me a call and said, hey, did you see where on the 13th of October, President Obama signed another executive order? I said, no. And I was out on YouTube today, and sure enough, they're talking about it. And it has to do with space and weather and space. He has a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day plan, pulling all the agencies together to alert and prepare for this big event.
Yep.
So,
and didn't it also say he signed over power? Damn it. I forget which particular agency he signed over power to if something jumped off.
FEMA got control. Now, that's my understanding, that FEMA now has control of everything. They don't even have, he don't have to do anything else. In the event it's totally declared, martial law is out in the open now. The field agents got control of everything. They don't need any more orders. But anyway, back to my Walmart. Now, I love where I live. That doesn't mean I would not like to live somewhere else. But right now, it'll do. Okay?
Right.
It's country, no transportation other than your own vehicle, or if you have a neighbor that's willing to give you a ride. So stores in the area are pretty slim. So the nearest nice store, I'm going to say it because I have eyes and I do pricing, and I know what I like to buy, like fresh meat, fresh vegetables. When you go in, it's clean, and the people are friendly and helpful. So I have to go out. I went out, and I go to my local Walmart, about 15 minutes away. The store is immaculate. It's beautiful. You know how they can arrange things, and it looks pleasing to the eye, the flowers. And so what I noticed were you know how the helpers are standing around, like if you need help?
Yeah.
The employees. They were looked like 19-ish, 20, 22-ish. Okay, with their high-tech gadget in their hands. And they did not come across as regular employees to me because
now that's
I asked one. I hope you're following my drift.
I'm getting you now. Now I'm like, okay, where's she going with this? I'm with you now, sis. Come on, I'm with you.
So that's what I wanted to mention about the Walmart and all this stuff out here on the internet, talking about the tunnels, and in the event there's a food shortage or a water shortage, they'll tell you, oh, we have free water at Walmart. Come on and get it, everybody. You can get it at the Walmart. But this is what rang my bell when I got home. Those two guys stood out like a sore thumb. Okay? They're acting as employees, but they don't know nothing about the store. So I asked one, where are your batteries? You know, like you have a flashlight or you have something. I like the AA to AAA. Walmart will have the lower price batteries, like 99 cents. You can get a 4-pack. Okay?
Right.
So I asked him, well, where are your batteries? He had this little high-tech gadget in his hand, and he's trying to locate the batteries in the store with this little high-tech gadget in his hand. And he has the little things in his ear. You know what I'm saying? So that's my update observation, going to my local Walmart. And, of course, it has train tracks that go right behind it. So those are the two things I wanted to mention that I was up to date on this week, hearing about the October 13th new thing that Obama did. And what did you mention last week that was so interesting?
That was real good, sister. You remember what I mentioned last week, or may I comment on the Walmart stuff? Because you brought up quite a bit there. But I didn't want you to lose your train of thought. Okay. And I see you, 661. I'm coming to you, sweetheart. Okay, so the Walmart thing. Now, that particular story that you just gave is really eerie to me because you go in that Walmart enough, so you pretty much know what's going to be, what stands out to you, what seems different. So anybody that's been in Walmart, you pretty much know, and this is not putting anybody down, but that's like if you go to any store, you know what that typical worker, the type of personality, their demeanor, and all of that. So if that stood out to you and they had something in their ear and their little device, that's very, very interesting. Now, is it a super Walmart, sis?
When you say a super Walmart, it has automotive?
Yep, that's a super Walmart thing. So we did a story sometime last year on Walmart and how the rumor is that some of the Walmarts, if not all of the Walmarts, are really double equipped to serve as a sort of holding camp, some say FEMA camps, and they use their distribution center to, it could easily be turned into a center to transport weapons because they have this whole sophisticated distribution center with the trains that can go underground and even the goods on this conveyor belt, et cetera, et cetera. So in addition to that, there was multiple reports. People were videoing certain Walmarts being shut down. And it looks like when you peek in the store that they're repurposing it for certain things. So last week, I started seeing articles again about the Walmart warning people that if something was to jump off and they try to get you to go to a Walmart for food, shelter, whatever, to don't do it because that's probably a FEMA camp, woo, woo, woo. So that's very interesting that you say that about Pres O signing that particular order. It has something to do with an event that's going to jump off. A couple of days ago, Dabu 7, and I didn't have the clip to play tonight, he came out with something saying that it's supposed to be something huge going on with some big solar flares that is going to hit the planet relatively soon, and that the U.S. Corp and the government knows about it, and that they've been running around doing a lot of preparation and making sure the underground facilities are up and running for the quote elite to run down there. So that kind of goes in hand with that executive order that Pres O has signed. So that's what I just wanted to put out there about that whole Walmart connection and story. So thanks for that update, sis.
Oh, anytime. That's the nicest store, and I haven't seen better prices. And
yeah, they definitely have good prices and all of that. I just don't mess with them. This was before all of the FEMA camp stuff jumped off. I didn't mess with them because they put a lot of mom and pop businesses out, and then it makes small towns like what you're in dependent on them. And
totally.
I don't like that. Yeah, I don't like that shit. That's why I gave up messing with Walmart years ago. I have to really, really need something to go in Walmart because I don't fool with them for that particular reason.
And we do have a new Publix that's kind of close by, but I still can't get to it. So when I'm able to get out to that Publix, I will go to that Publix store. It's nice, too. It is very nice.
Publix, their prices are higher. They do have, some specialty stuff that Walmart is not going to have.
Like kosher, if you get my drift.
Yep. I get it, sis, which is why Walmart does very well. But, I stopped messing with them because I know they price out the mom and pops and force people to be dependent on them. They don't pay their workers. Most of their workers were on welfare, so that's why I didn't mess with Walmart. So when all this other stuff started coming out about them, I'm like, yeah, okay, then that's just one more reason for me not to fool with y'all.
And the positive part about it, I heard Dr. Henderson say a long, long time ago how the original families will get it back. So that is sticks in my mind. In the meantime, I do the best I can do. And
absolutely.
Last story. Listening to the show from last week, and you're talking about parallel universes and so forth. I was working in a department store, and I had a workers' comp injury. So the office was downtown, and I went there because when you have these worker comp injuries, there is so much that they offer to some folks, but the rest of us, they cheat us. So I had an appointment in the office downtown, and I went, and the nice receptionist showed me which office to go into, and I went into the office, and there was a gentleman sitting there from head to toe. He had on all black. Men in black.
Okay, I'm listening, sis. Okay.
Now, about a year or so later, I'd say maybe 9 months later, the head of the office, I had an appointment with him. And I was mentioning that appointment that I had in the office some months earlier. And he said, oh, no, that's impossible. We have not had any appointments in that office because his office, he was making his appointments in another city where his office was. They don't have appointments in that office.
Okay, wait a minute, Amir. Now, you always call them with some bull crap. So let me restate, and you let me know if I'm wrong. In 661, I see you, sweetheart. I'm coming to you. Just let me know if because I want to tell your story properly. So what you are saying is you went into the little office, and so it was a man sitting there in all black. So you went to your little doctor's appointment, this, that, and the third. Couple of months later, and that stuck out in your mind, this man sitting here dressed in all black. So a couple of months later, you went back, and so you just, for your follow-up appointment, whatever the case may be, you so happened to mention it to the doctor because it was weird. It stuck out in your mind, and he said that was impossible for that person to be there.
Okay. It was the workers' comp division offices.
Okay, regardless of the fact, they said that it was impossible for that person to be there.
So when I come in, I don't see anyone but the nice receptionist at the desk. And she directed me to the office to go to meet with who was going to discuss what all was available to me as an injured employee. And of course, it was Kaufman's was taken over by the big one out of New York. Was that the Macy's? Okay. So anyway, I met with this gentleman. What stuck out in my mind is how handsome he was, dressed in all black. Oh, he looked good. It's years and years later, like now, we're learning about men in black. I didn't know anything about men in black. But some months later, the director of the office, he has the appointments in another city. That's where he has his appointments, at that office. So when I went to meet with him as a follow-up, it's like, why can't I get any benefits? You know, and I mentioned the meeting I had some months later in that downtown office when he got upset and told me how that was impossible. They don't have appointments down there.
So what do you think happened?
And I did not meet with anyone.
Whoa.
I'm thinking I had one of those, based on our conversation with the nice gentleman, it was a strange conversation. So I just figured I'd mention that because I was out there on YouTube, and the guy said the same thing happened to him when he was doing a movie on the set, and two of them just popped out and told him to turn around and go and get away from this area. He said, I had one of those experiences where two men in black just popped out as I'm going to my location. And I'm saying that I have a meeting with one that day because nobody knows who this gentleman was and why he was there, and I shouldn't have had a meeting with him. Thank you for letting me chime in. Of course, you know, I'm still clueless. You know, I'm not saying.
Was deep.
Yeah, that was deep. It's like a lot of stuff happened, and we don't even remember or think about it or connect anything. Right. You know what I'm saying?
And I think we're jumping to different realms at that point. And that's why I'm going to go back to that little series, Fringe. I talked about that. Me and a couple of other of the family talked about that series, Fringe, on Fox. And Fringe was on for quite a few years. And even in Fringe, they had the men in black. So it's something, yeah, that's pretty deep, sis.
And it jarred my memory when I was listening to your show last week.
Wow.
When somebody mentioned men in black. I don't know what you call it.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you. One heart, one mind, one spirit, I yield.
Oh, okay, Nightfall, sis. Love you. Wow, that was deep. Okay, so let's go to 661. Woo, yeah, sis, you got me on that one. Greetings, sis 661. Your line is open.
Greetings, sis. How are you?
I'm well, beloved. How are you?
Really good, thank you. But I want to talk about this Walmart a little bit. Since the man brought it up. And I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to put it out there. How many Walmart trucks have you seen on the highways?
Damn, sis, why you start? Now that you say something, to be honest, I ain't seen one in a minute.
Exactly. I have traveled in the last 2 weeks to the East Coast, but I did that by air. But we were out in cars, too. I've traveled from north, the central of the state here, to the south. There is zero Walmart trucks on the highway. And also, I was on a conference with a class I have yesterday, and I believe one of the ladies, I think she said she was from Maine. She said the FEMA camps are open.
How did the lady know all of that, though?
She lives in Maine. She sees, and that's where they are. You know, the UN is in Maryland, I believe it is. And, of course, Obama has surrendered the Constitution, it's rumored. So they're preparing for that. Now, this is a little side bit that when I read that Obama had double 007, whatever it is.
777, double 7, yeah.
He was turning it over to DHS, the Department of Homeland Security.
That's what it was. I couldn't remember what agency he had turned it over to.
Yes, the Department of Homeland Security. And they're the ones that's going to be in control. And they're also going to prepare for counterterrorism. That's what Double was saying. And that didn't make sense. So I was running my mouth this morning like I usually do, talking to somebody. And he says an EMP is a lot of radiation. and they're preparing for the radiation. And I said, oh, yeah.
Okay, so you listened to the same video I did. Yep.
Yes. And then Malachi, the 4th chapter, popped in my mind.
Ooh.
Repeat what it said.
Sis, enlighten us. What does Malachi, the 4th chapter, say?
The Son of Righteousness, S-U-N, will come with healing in its wings. And our enemies will be burnt and we'll be able to walk. I'm paraphrasing. We'll be able to walk on their ashes.
Damn. Now, okay, that's deep when you said the sun with its wings. Because, you know, they're saying, they keep showing the picture of, quote, quote, Nibiru.
Right.
With the wings.
Right. S-U-N, not
right. Not S-O-N, S-U-N.
That's not a typo, okay?
That lines up with those solar flares.
Yep, the EMPs, and of course, Gil Brazard, according to Wendell, I didn't check him out yet, but said that the return of Nibiru was going to be the most of the damage that's going to happen on this planet. Is not the going by, but the coming back when the tail sweeps across. And so it's going to bring a lot of radiation to the planet.
That's very interesting. So that would, again, make sense why they are lining up to do all of this disaster preparedness. And remember when we said 2 weeks ago that Russia just did a disaster preparedness with 40 million of its people? Underground preparedness?
Of course. They have to go underground because the planet has to be clear.
It has to be cleansed.
It has to be cleansed. And I have been listening to Torah Bible codes, and Judah has returned in 5776. And they say on them codes, he says, try me, return to me, and I'll return to you, and I'll show you my word is valid. Now, what word is that? The word Malachi.
Oh, this is going to be on and popping.
Isaiah 12, 13, 11. All of those are coming to pass because Nibiru is the winged planet.
Yep.
With suns with healing in its wings.
So healing for some, death to others.
Death to others, exactly.
Oh, sookie now. Wow, sis. That puts it in perspective. So I'm going to write down Malachi 4th chapter.
Yeah, and you will find out it says a lot. And I can read it to you, but I think they need to experience it for themselves.
I think so, too. I think folk need to read that for themselves. I'm going to read it, and then we'll definitely discuss it next week.
And then you get to the Mars issue. Well, Obama has melanin. And when you look at the spaceships, they don't go straight up. They fall to the side.
There you go.
They don't have the melanin on board to go up in them ships.
And it's rumored that they were putting coating
on the
ships with melanin, trying to break through.
And stuff, I know. Yes, just to get their spaceship as far as they could get it. They can't break that barrier because they don't have the right stuff.
Exactly. So, and then to me, that also meant it's two things three things that's blocking that barrier. I was say even 4 things. Okay, so one is the dome that's over that. And then the next one is, even let's say if you get past the dome, which I don't think you could get past the dome without 9 ether, okay?
Right.
And so that's the other thing, is the 9 ether they're missing. Then you have the asteroid belt that's blocking them. And then the other thing is, that is a portal that they're trying to go through. Do you have that 9 ether? Do you have permission in your 9 ether bloodline to break that portal?
Right.
Because the planet is on lockdown.
It's a prison planet.
Exactly.
That's what Alex Jones always says, prison planet, prison planet. And finally it got through to me what he was saying. It was not a catchy phrase.
No.
It is a prison planet.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you say, I'm sorry, sis, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay, because I was just going to say, we cannot let the seed of war, hatred, and destruction off the planet. It has to be contained right here, and that's Scripture. That's I think that's Deuteronomy, the 14th, 16th verse. That was part of the Bible code, because the men of war have to be destroyed.
Oh my goodness, sis. I promise you, I just had this conversation 2 hours ago.
Really?
And yes, I promise you I did. I just had this conversation, and I was talking about that certain entities are trapped down here.
And they're trying their best to get off.
They're trying to get off. It ain't going to happen. They can't get off because they are going to be destroyed.
There's judgment on the line now. There's judgment now. It's not forgiveness. It's not delay. You can try, but you can't, because the script, it's in the Torah codes. The rabbis, the Jewish, whatever.
Jewish, yeah, but anyhow.
That study it, studying Judaism, that's ours.
Right.
They said that the men of war are going to be destroyed in the Bible codes.
And they know that. They know the people that judgment is falling upon them, and that they have to pay the piper, per se. And those of you that followed us through the creation story myths, and we just finished the Lost Book of Inky, all of this should make sense to you. They know this ain't nothing new to them. They know.
They know the time is here. They still know.
That's why they ass trying to get up out of here.
And of course, Obama was chosen because I heard from Valentine that his mama's Jewish. She's a...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Pale-faced. And not the mama they said was dead and all that kind of stuff.
That's interesting.
And that, since she's Jewish, he had an uncle who was running everything, and he died about 2011 and 2010 or something like that. And he's the one who got him elected. That's what Valentine said, and Dr. Phil Valentine said in one of his videos. And so he's...
I believe that.
I hate to say it, working for both sides. But anyway, because he's working his Jewish roots and he's working...
right. And that would make sense if he's, he has both those bloodlines. But here's where they messed up, because I heard the theory that he was trying to be their savior. Let's make that clear, family.
That's right. Put us in slavery.
Right. He's trying to be their savior, not the melanated people's savior, because you have to come through that melanated portal.
Exactly.
And the melanated portal is the melanated woman. He didn't come through the melanated woman.
No.
So his bloodline is more tied to the fake Jews, who are really the Khazarians. So he's their savior. He's not the melanated people's savior.
That's right. They said they were going to put us in slavery. Well, we're already in slavery if you carry your slave master's name, of course. We weren't in slavery for sure, but they made laws that put us in slavery by calling us by the slave names: Indian, Black, Negro, Colored, American. Because once you answer to a slave name like Toby in Roots, they got you.
Right.
So, they said they were going to put us all in slavery because we were easy to handle.
And here you go. I'm finna go metaphysics on this.
Okay.
This will actually also be a great segue into the segment tonight. Now, this is Rhonda's lowly opinion now.
Mm-hmm.
To me, and I promise you, sis, I just had this. All of this conversation you and I having, I just had it 2 hours ago.
Well, the Most High or the Creator of all, Most High, whatever you want to call him,
Mm-hmm.
is speaking to us now. We're getting their reception. The Coast of Nibiru is to doing its thing.
Absolutely. The folk that are trapped down here are trying to repeat the cycle.
Right.
Of enslaving the people.
Exactly.
They want the same energies here, the same 9 ether melanated beings captured in slavery, sleep with the mind.
That's truth.
So they think they can have more time in this realm to rule.
That's right.
But again, they know the prophecy. They think that they can reverse it using rituals, but they still don't want to face the fact that it's already been written. We wrote the shit millions of years ago.
That's true.
We told them this time was coming, and their time is up.
I would encourage our people to get crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Buy diodes if you can afford all that, but crystal will block the signal of that cellular electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Will block it, and your memory will come open more because they're using that cellular electricity like microwave oven.
Mm-hmm.
Cooking us from the inside out.
Yep. I have my diode on my left arm, my crystal around my neck. You don't have to spend a lot of money on it. Actually, the one on my arm is from the late master teacher, Dr. Dilbert Blair. I bought it from him. Actually, that and this crystal. Now that
you can buy them from the fabric store, too. You can go in there and buy crystals.
You sure can. You could buy the crystals. You can also, the diode, just get a pure copper bracelet.
Yeah, exactly. And that will help our people wake up to what is actually happening because you'll be able to hear. The copper will make their sensory good. That's why Samson lost his hair because he had copper in his hair, which he got the instructions from the Creator of all and what to do. And then when they cut his hair, which I don't know if it was something that really existed, but that's telling us the secret.
Right.
That's what it's trying to tell us.
That's what that 9 ether is all throughout us. And your hair, that's a source of communication. That's antennas.
Yeah, it's true.
So we're going to get into that when we get into the universe, the master codes, how sound shapes numbers, because all of that is intertwined. And it's stuff that our ancestors taught us millions of years ago. And this is just my theory. I think some of us are the ancestors' return. We were on that voyage millions of years ago when civilization was set up here on the planet. And so that's why now a lot of this knowledge that is coming back up, and we had like the forefront of the master teacher, Phil Valentine, Dr. Phil Valentine, and Dr. Blair, and Bobby Hemmett, starting laying the foundation for us. But the next generation to come into play, that's why now we're looking at this information and we're like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense, because now we're starting to access those ancient Akashic records.
Mm-hmm.
and we're coming online per se. But this is nothing new because we knew that this was going to happen. We wrote that this was going to happen.
Well, they're using sound, which is music,
Mm-hmm.
or just to disrupt our intersection.
We're going to talk about that tonight, too. Yes.
That's why they win idol. These people are winning idols with these tones that are about an eighth or 16th off key.
Yes. We're going to talk about that because the musical key, man, sis, you just basically going into the whole show that I hit tonight. And we're going to go deep. No, this is very good because this lets me know that I was right on track. And this didn't come through me. This came through a higher source that this needed to be talked about. But we're going to get into tonight how the actual musical scale, and it's called the ancient musical scale, was absolutely changed.
Mm-hmm.
And the Vatican was the one to change it.
Of course.
And the ancient musical scale, the traditional scale that do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, blah, blah, blah. It's slightly different, as you say, but the original ancient scale has the universal tones to it. And each one of those, the hertz, absolutely. And each one of those tones vibrates at a certain level. They have a certain function. And not only that, when they resonate, they even turn into certain geometric shapes and letters. So, we're absolutely going to get into talking about that all tonight. So, wow, sis, I'm really, really excited. Really excited that you brought that up.
It's good stuff. We need peace back on the planet, and we have to get the sound and the frequencies back on track to bring peace to the planet.
Absolutely. And anybody that does not resonate with those particular tones, frequencies, quote, quote, sounds, they will not be able to make it.
No.
And that's what I think part of these solar flares and these blasts of radiation is coming into play. It's about to be set off. So even those that run up underground,
they ain't going to make it.
What difference do it make? Exactly, because either one or two things going to happen. You're going to be under that. Exactly, you're going to be under that bitch so long that it's going to be like a tomb, or the earth is going to shake so much that, you're going to still be done in. So very, very interesting stuff, sis.
Well, I know one thing. If they go down there, those things better be made out of lead because radiation goes through everything. But
I don't see. And me personally, I already know in my mind, I'm not going to no goddamn underground. I'm not going to Walmart for no water, no protection.
No.
If I can't make it with the radiation hitting me, it is what it is. I just jump to another ring. That's just me personally. I'm not trying to tell nobody else what to do.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I know.
Mm-hmm.
I am in a reception of thought and messages. He's going to protect.
Absolutely, and I really feel that way.
He's going to protect.
1,000%. I 1,000% feel it. I've prepared myself, raising my vibration. I feel my DNA and structure has already been prepared for the change.
Mm-hmm. And he said it. He said, we will all be protected because he is making his word live for us, not for them.
Right. Very true, sis.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very true. Well, thank you, beloved. We're going to get into tonight's topic, so I'm going to mute you. So I may unmute you again, or I can leave you open and you can mute yourself and come in and out as you want. It's totally up to you.
I'll mute myself.
Okay. All right. Mute yourself, and then when you want to come in and put something on it, come in and put something on it. So we're going to get into tonight's topic. And family, anyone else want to join the conversation, press *6 to get in the queue. So tonight's, the main topic is, and that was perfect what sis came in, it's the universe master code, how sounds, shapes, and numbers create our reality. Okay, so particularly last week, Brother Wendell, and I want to say Brother Fred, hit me to Professor James Gates. I had never heard of Brother Gates, but, ooh, baby, when I did the research on him, he basically brought it. So he particularly goes into how mathematics shapes our universe, and he also is going to get into talking about the Higgs boson, which anytime you hear that, Higgs, Higgs boson, you know that means the God particle. And you could take that one step further, meaning melanin. And when you hear about Higgs boson, it's also going to be associated with CERN. So I'm going to just real quick, Wikipedia, you could go out there, and it does a thing on, and it also has a very cool picture associated with it. And they literally call it God particle. The Higgs boson is an elementary particle in the standard model of particle physics. It is the quantum excitation of the Higgs field, a fundamental field of crucial importance to particle physics theory, first suspected to exist in the 1960s. Unlike other known fields such as electromagnetic field, which that's what they keep trying to control us with, to suppress your God particle, that 9 ether. But anyway, it takes a non-zero constant value almost everywhere. The question of Higgs field's existence has been the last unverified part of the standard model of particle physics, and according to some, the central problem in particle physics. So I'm not going to read all of that, but as you get further down in the explanation, they pretty much also says that that's what CERN is about. It's that large colander where they are trying to recreate, they say, the Big Bang theory, but it's really recreate the Higgs boson, or that melanated particle that shapes the universe. So the clip that I'm going to play from Professor James Gates, it's brilliant, family. I absolutely urge you to go ahead and check this clip out, where I'm going to play it. I forgot how long I said I'm going to play it. How long did I say? Oh, it's going to be a good 20 minutes, but it's going to be worth it, because really you need to go back and listen to the whole thing. It's only an hour, but the name of it is Mathematics of Supersymmetry to the Music of Arnold Schwartzberg and James Gates. And so this is off the YouTube channel Trev M. Okay, so I'm going to play this, and then we're going to come back and chop it up, because this brother is so tight. And thank you, Brother Wendell. And I think Brother Fred, you was the one that hit me to Professor James Gates. I have so much mad respect for this man. So we're going to play this, and then we're going to come back and chop it up. So let me see if I can find this video. I uploaded so much stuff, family. Let me make sure. I hope it's up here. I'm going to be really disappointed if it's not. If not, I'm going to have to talk through it. There it is. There it is. Okay, hold on, family. I got to scroll to the 20-minute mark. Let me see.
Hello, thank you.
That the equations which had been presented slightly before I got to graduate school made this prediction that there would be more forms of matter and energy than we had ever thought about before. And I wound up writing the first PhD thesis at MIT at the time. Now, it was an interesting experience because I was very excited. More forms of matter and energy. You know, it's like a kid with a new toy. I got more toys, Dad. I got more toys, right? I could not find a single faculty member who would help me learn about this new subject. And so I wound up actually having to teach it to myself, and then I defended my thesis. Now, I have to tell you that for those of you who are thinking about going to graduate school, maybe you want to do a little bit like what I did. So I wrote this thesis on this subject that no one at the institution knew anything about. And so when it came time to defend it, I knew more about what was in the thesis than anybody in the room. And therefore, defending it was a piece of cake. In fact, one of the people who was on my thesis defense committee is currently the Secretary of Energy of the United States. His name is Ernie Moniz. And a few years ago, I encountered Ernie after not seeing him for maybe 20 or so years, and I asked him, Ernie, do you remember what you said about my thesis defense? And he said, sure. It was the best thesis defense I had ever seen. And I was like, wow, then I didn't imagine it. And then the funny thing that happened was when he said that, and even at the time I thought, boy, you don't know about the Kobayashi Maru. Now, for those of you who are Star Trek fans, and for those of you who are not, the Kobayashi Maru is a computer test given to all graduates of Starfleet Academy that you have to pass in order to graduate. Now, the only problem with this virtual reality test is it's programmed so that no matter what choice you make, your starship will be destroyed. In the entire history of Starfleet Academy, only one cadet successfully makes it past this test. His name is James Tiberius Kirk. And the way that he did it was the night before the exam, he rewrote some code. That's what my thesis defense was about. I had rewritten the code about how to defend the thesis. So I told you about this property called spin. It's very important. If you look at many chemistry textbooks, you'll see figures like this. They're called orbitals. What they show you is how the electrons distribute themselves around an atom. And these orbitals and their form is very important because the rules of chemistry actually come from these shapes. But these shapes come from the fact that the electron has spin. If you could magically turn the spin off of electrons, the following would happen. All the electrons would fall to the lowest energy level of the atom. There would be no shape for atoms. There would be no chemistry as we know it. If you don't have chemistry, you can't get to biology. And if you can't get to biology, you can't get to us. So you see, the fact that electrons spin is a critical feature of our existence. If electrons didn't spin, we couldn't be here. So we're going to take a journey down in size. Excuse me. Each of the marks in this represents a power of 10. What's a power of 10? Well, let's go through it really quickly. Start with a ruler, yardstick, meter stick, break into tentacle pieces, throw away 9, keep 1. You go from something this big to about something that big. Take that remaining object, break into tentacle pieces, throw away 9. You get something about as broad as my fingernail. How many times do you have to do that process to get the size of the atom? Now, I'm a professor, so this is your pop quiz for the evening. Now, I ask this question to lots of audiences, and almost nobody knows the answer to this question. Even though everybody's heard of atoms, nobody knows where atoms are, how big they are. So in my story, the answer turns out to be you do that process 10 times. And you go from how big we are to how big an atom is. It's only 10 times. It's not very far away. People often like to say million, billions. Some people like billions and billions. It's only 10 times. Right? So if we go down in size, and this is a little movie showing that, if my technology will continue, it did not. Technology failure. But this movie was designed to show that as you go down in different sizes, you encounter things smaller and smaller. So first, blood cells, about 10 to the minus 5. 10 to the minus 9, you get to strands of DNA. 10 to the 10 is the size of the atom. 10 to the 15, minus 15, this nucleus of the atom. And at 10 to the minus 18, we don't know what goes on after that because we have no technology that can measure scales smaller than that. So if we humans are going to try to figure out what's smaller in the universe, we can't use our technology. So what's left? It turns out what's left is our imagination. But not our imagination that we use to write science fiction and mystery stories, but our imagination harnessed to this kind of stuff. You see, mathematics is essentially an element of the human imagination. Just like music, poetry, literature, all come from human creativity and use of the imagination, mathematics is the same thing. One of the questions I like to ask audiences is, next week, will there be more music than there is right now? Yes, because you know that next week there will be someone somewhere writing more music, right? Simple question. Next question. Next week, will there be more mathematics than there is right now? People often say, how can that possibly be? Well, the answer is yes. There will be more mathematics next week than there exists right now. And the reason is for the same reason there will be more music next week. People make mathematics. We create mathematics. Just like we create music and song and lyrical poetry, we create mathematics. And one of the odd things there are many odd things about the language of mathematics. One of them is that it's the most telepathic language that we have. And by that we mean you can know more precisely what someone is thinking if you use mathematics than any set of words. What does that mean? Well, suppose I say red. Okay, so you could all have a picture of red in your mind. Do I mean fire engine red? Or do I mean a pale red that's almost a pink? Or do I mean a orangish red? What kind of red? What does red mean? But if I say the number 1, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So mathematics comes as close to telepathy as any human language we have. The other thing about mathematics is we are apparently the only species on the planet that makes this stuff. So people like me use mathematics. But it's not just about balancing equations. We use mathematics as a third eye, as a way to see the universe. The first person to know the size of an atom was a guy named Albert Einstein. He did it in 1905 using mathematics. So people like me use equations like this to ask what's smaller than our technology can currently see. And since about the middle 1970s, we've been storing equations like this. So this is an equation that kind of says, well, the thing in the middle here is kind of half an electron. And remember that kind of symmetry that I showed you where I wanted the universe to be perfectly symmetrical in terms of spin and matter and energy? It says that equations like this should describe such a universe. So people like me have been studying these things. You know, you look at them and you say, oh boy, it's that math stuff again. It's even worse than that because these D's are derivatives. Oh my goodness, calculus. You know, you remember your calculus class. Come on, don't act like you've never heard of calculus. You know, not necessarily a fun occasion, but you know they're tools, so we continue to use them. Why do we use mathematics? It turns out it's the only human language we have encountered that allows us to accurately describe what goes on in nature. There is no other language we know that works as well. That's why it's done with mathematics. I often encounter people say, well, can't you do it without math? Well, yeah, I can if I'm willing to lie to you a little bit. But if you want to know the most accurate truth, I have to do it with mathematics. So as I give a talk like this, I'm using similes and metaphors to describe actual hard mathematical facts. But I also said that it's a human endeavor. So just like we can connect poetry to our emotions, we can connect mathematics to things that you know about. And that's, in fact, the way that I give a talk like this. Wow, that doesn't look like mathematics, right? It looks it's a picture. Well, it turns out that in 2005, I was in Georgia, the one that is north of Tehran. A couple of 100 miles. And I saw a paper on the internet, and I sent a message to the author saying, gee, some of your equations remind me of some things that I've been playing with. And I got back a message from one of the authors, a gentleman named Michael Fox. He said, oh, that's interesting. I've been thinking about this thing. Let's talk about this. So we started an internet conversation. without meeting each other at the time. And at the end of the month, we had sent questions back and forth to the degree where we had made this interesting construct where we could take the equations that I showed you in my previous slides and turn them into pictures. But not just any old suggestive picture. Every mathematical fact in the equations occurs in these pictures. Now this was mind-blowing. By the time that we finished this, I was in West Africa in the country of Mali. And Michael was in the Slovak Republic at the time. And so we found this picture-making way to extract mathematics, and we needed a name for it. Now, physicists, especially theoretical physicists, we're a little bit wacky. And so when we find something that's really neat, we don't give it a name that shows a lot of respect. We give it a silly name, like quark, for example. So Michael, who had traveled in West Africa a decade before I had ever been to the continent, knew about this African word called adinkras. And he suggested that we should name our pictures after these things, adinkras. Now, they don't have anything to do with traditional African adinkras. We simply stole the word. So it turns out that instead of showing you equations, I know how to tell you stories of physics using pictures instead. Probably feels a little bit better than showing you a whole bunch of equations. Now, each of the dots in these pictures turn out to be what's called a function in mathematics. So maybe you remember doing your math and hearing about functions. And there are two kinds of functions here. The white ones correspond to functions that spin like the photon or the Higgs particle, and the black ones correspond to particles that spin like the electron. So the whole spin story is actually in these pictures. There are pluses and minus signs, there are calculus. All of that stuff turns out to be in these pictures, and that's what amazed Michael and I. So here's an example of how you turn the pictures into equations. This is a simplified example. I won't spend a lot of time here, but we have a dictionary, basically, that tells us how to take a picture and turn it to a set of equations, or vice versa. Now, I have to tell you that these pictures played a very important role in the story I'm reciting tonight, because a few months before I talked to Michael, I gave a talk in Luminy near Marseille in France. It was one of the few times I spoke at a conference of mathematicians. And what I showed them were all the equations that I had been studying with my students and what have you. And I gave this talk before some of the most brilliant mathematicians in the world. And I got to the end of my talk, and there was complete silence. And I was like, why did I just do this to myself? I'm sure that their reaction was, this guy is either crazy or doesn't know anything about mathematics or some such thing, because there was just no reaction. With these pictures, something rather remarkable happens. Remember I told you all the mathematics is in the pictures? Well, the mathematics we physicists like to use. It turns out mathematicians actually think about mathematics differently from physicists. So when I found these pictures, together with Michael, I could hold them under my mathematical friends' noses and say, what is this? What do you see there? And because the information is really in the picture, they could begin to tell me a story about what they saw there. Very different from the way that I initially thought about the story, I and my colleagues. So I formed this interdisciplinary group. 3 mathematicians, Greg Landweber, Charles Duran, and Kevin Iga. 3 physicists, myself, Michael Fox, and Tristan Hughes. And we began to a cross-disciplinary dialogue about these objects. So, as I was saying, when we developed these pictures, we were then able to talk to our mathematical colleagues, and they would tell us different things that were not obvious to those physicists in our group when we first started the presentations. And so, one of the things that came from this effort is a new way to understand calculus, and it looks like the technology is going to come back. So let me talk about it while we're waiting. As you raise and lower these little beads, it turns out you're doing calculus. I would love to be a calculus teacher where all I had to do is walk in the classroom, give my students some beads and thread, and say, move those around. And if you move it the right way, I'll give you an A in calculus. So let's see if all this effort has paid off. So here's one of these little figures. That was an integral, folks. You just graduated from a calculus class. So we learned that you could do algebra and calculus on these figures, and the figures actually knew about the stuff. So we have these dictionaries. We now have ways to playfully, graphically do mathematics, and then the fun really begins. Now, for those of you who might be interested in playing these games, it turns out that there's an app online that you can download for free from this URL. Anyone can get this. My colleague, Greg Landweber, who's one of our mathematicians, actually wrote some code, so you can start playing with these things if you find it so fascinating. Here's one of these objects, as I said, that we've learned to play with, and this is, in fact, massive sets of equations. Here's more of them. These are much simpler, but Einstein once said, after a certain high degree of technical skill is achieved, science and art coalesce in aesthetics, plasticity, and form. And a little bit of that started happening in this story because, you see, here's some very simple versions of these graphical ways of playing with mathematics. There's a little bit more complicated set of versions. Here's another one, another one. Now it's starting to get a little bit interesting. Even more so. And these are all equations that you're looking at. Now, it's hard to believe that these are equations. You know, you often hear mathematicians talk about the beauty of the subject. And for those of us who are not mathematicians, you kind of look at them and say, those people are crazy. But when you see the equations rendered as some of these pictures, you begin to get a sense that maybe there is a kind of beauty there, that they're in their imaginations, they're able to access these things that I can now show you in terms of these computer graphics. Now, these are massive sets of these equations in order to get these illustrations. And my wife, who was sitting in the audience, has often said that if we could find someone who weaves, she would love to have these as wall hangings. So if any of you are weavers in the audience, please talk to me afterwards. It turns out that some crazy stuff about donuts started showing up in this. There's a piece of mathematics called Riemann surfaces, and one of my mathematical colleagues quite recently has shown that these funny pictures that Michael and I started, in which the group actually began to develop, has an even more powerful connection to mathematics of precisely the nature that occurs in string theory. Riemann surfaces, it turns out, is a core foundational concept of string theory, and we find just by playing with these pictures, we get driven to the same mathematical concept. So here's one of these pictures, and now I'm going to do some matrix algebra for you. As I keep the same horizontal height and change the balls, I'm doing what's in mathematics called matrix algebra. I'm doing matrix multiplication. Again, if you teach linear algebra to your students, wouldn't it be great? Just to say, do that, you got an A. They'd love you more. Here we're doing a derivative. So when we change vertical heights, we're doing calculus. I'm still doing 4 integrals here. I'm going to do 3 more. There they go. And you'll notice there are 2 identical subcells now. You could not see those things from the initial figure, but they were always there. Now, since I've discovered that they're there, I'm going to try to glue the 2 of them together. Since they're identical, I'm going to say, well, suppose one is in fact a mirror of the other. Now, in order to do that, I have to do some mathematical transformations, which in terms of graphs means twisting, turning, but never breaking the links. And then finally, I can jam the 2 together with a perfect match, open them back up, and the equations that this represents were the ones that were half an electron that we met earlier in our talk. Now, the object from which we began.
Okay, family. So I'm going to summarize that because I know it was a lot, but I do urge you, because we started at the 20-minute mark, but the name of this particular video is Mathematics Let me go back to my notes. Bear with me here. Mathematics of Supersymmetry to the Music of Arnold Schwarzenberg and James Gate. And I got this one off the YouTube channel, Trev M. It's an hour-long video. We started at the 20-minute mark, so I wanted to stop. I didn't want everybody to get restless. So I'm going to kind of summarize what he went over and what he was about to go over. So basically, in this video, and once you look at it, it will be a lot more interesting because those particular models that he was playing with, all he was doing, which was really fascinating to me, he was putting up a model of geometric shapes. So as he moved the shapes to certain positions, he, number one, told you what type of mathematics he was doing by moving those shapes. And number two, because he said we're doing calculus, now we're doing algebra, this, that, and the other. And then number two, as he was moving the particular shapes, it turned into other shapes. So I remember the master teachers, and I think specifically this was Dr. Phil Valentine, saying that the way that mathematics is taught today by these quote, quote, universities, notice universities, but anyway, the way that they are taught today is really atrocious, because the way that our ancestors taught mathematics was through shapes and pictures. So for this brother to particularly, before the quote-quote scientific community, start with this model. And on this model, once you look at the YouTube video, you'll see each point on the model had binary codes associated with it. And binary codes always mean 0, 1. 0 for false, 1 for true. And just by simply moving them, the calculation changed, but it changed to another shape, and that equated to what they're teaching now as calculus. So he essentially proved that mathematics and shapes, or geometric shapes, to be exact, go hand in hand. Now, you didn't get a chance to hear it because I didn't want to overwhelm you, but once you got down deeper into the video, let's start about what he talked about, that a neutron / atom can be reduced down 10 times. And I found until you get down to the smallest that it can be broken down. I thought that was interesting because the number 10 always represents the particular realm that we are in. And the number 10 has the code 1 and 0. So I found that interesting that he said that as well. And then the other thing he said in the video I found interesting is that he literally said, quote, that we could use mathematics as sort of like a third eye, a way to see the universe. And he also equated mathematics as a form of telepathy communication. So once you get down further in the video, which we didn't play tonight, but you can certainly go back and listen to it on your own, when he was moving the particular geometric shapes, because when you see it on the video, each particular point on the geometric shape either had a code of 0 associated with it or a code of 1. So that means binary. And by the way, that's how all computers are ran. Everything is either 0 or 1, meaning true or false, and you can calculate the string, that particular string of code 1100 into a number. But anyhow, I digress. So in the video, he starts to talk about how when you get to the code 1111, that's what makes things move in the universe. And he equated it to computers. That computers, I just explained how computers work with the binary codes of 0 and 1. How we program the computers that when the code equals 111, that they package up the particular data and they send it across. So now let's put that from a metaphysics standpoint. 1111, that's what 111 represents. In the world of metaphysics or the spiritual realm, 1111 means manifestation, hands down. Whenever you want something to manifest, 1111. If you're thinking of something and you just so happen to look at your clock, you see 1111, that's very symbolic, that's very important, that means manifestation. Or if you see 22, if you add the 1 and the 1, that's 2, add the other 1 and the 1, that's 2, that still equals manifestation. So that was huge for me to hear the scientific man saying that the code 1111 makes things happen in the universe. And he has proven this from a scientific point, and he's also put it back in the scientific community's face that that's how you've been coding your computers to make things move when that code 1111 hits. Okay, so then he also, later on in that video, he started getting into how you can also take those particular mathematics and you can equate them with musical notes. So Sis and I were just talking about, and that was just a perfect segue into how the originally, we had an ancient musical scale note. So the scale note that we're used to hearing is the do, say, re, fa, sol, la. I'm probably jacking that up. But anyhow, you know where I'm going with that. That is slightly off from what the original ancient universal musical note system is. And it was said that the Vatican changed the particular musical scale. Really, I don't even know what the doggone quote alleged reason they was that changed it. You know, the public reason was bull crap. But really the real reason that they changed it is because they wanted a certain vibration frequency to resonate. And that particular vibration frequency was lower. And so it didn't put you on the realm of the universal code to make things happen. Now, the ancient musical note scale is called, and I never pronounce it right, solfeggio. It's SOLFEGGIO scale. So you can go on to YouTube and you can pull this information up. But these particular hertzes are the original musical note scale, and the hertzes can also be associated with properties. They have a certain purpose in the universe. So, and they're associated with letters and mathematics. So you have the first one is UT, and that is 396 hertz. And that particular intent, the universal intent of that code is to turn grief into joy, liberating guilt and fear. The next one is Re. We know this one, RE, which is 417 hertz. And the intent on that one is undoing situations and facilitating change. Now, we know this one also, Me. This one has a hertz of 528. This one has the intent of transformation and miracles. And this is actually the one that I use in the very first clip that I play to the opening. You hear this music in the background. That is set to the hertz of 528, transformation and miracle. Now, I'm going to tell a quick story on that because a couple of years ago, when I found out about this musical scale, I started listening to the different tones. And I still have these tones today, and every now and then I'll go back every so often and listen to them, meditate with them, or whatever. But this Me one for DNA transformation and miracles, I particularly played around with. So I would sit about 5 minutes a day, listen to it. And I challenge anybody to do this. Some people say when they listen to it, they get a headache. I've personally used them to stop headaches. But what happened to me, every time I listen to this, and then when I'm done with it, you can hear this sound going on in your body. And as you're listening to it, you can feel your body tingling. So the purpose of that one is, this is the Me one. It's the 528 hertz. That's transformation and miracles. The next one, Fa, we do know this one. That's pretty typical. That has a hertz of 639. That's reconnecting and balancing relationships. Soul, we know that one, which is interesting. I think a soul, S-O-U-L, but anyhow, that has a hertz of 741, and the intent for that is solving problems, expression, and solutions. La, we know this one, is 852, and this one has an intent of awakening, intuition, returning to spiritual order. C, S-I, has a hertz of 963. And then this one, it says, this tone awakens any system to its original perfected state. It is connected with light and all-embracing spirit and enables direct experience, the return to oneness. The other tone, 174 hertz, and then it says it's the lowest of the tone, and it appears to be a natural anesthetic. I found that interesting. It tends to reduce pain physically and energetically. It gives, this particular frequency gives your organs a sense of security, safety, and love. And then the last one on the scale is 285, and this frequency helps reduce tissues into its original form. It also influences your energy field, sending them a message to restructure damaged organs. It also leaves your body rejuvenated and energized. So, and then this also goes on to say that there are additional hertzes as well, but the particular scale that I went over is the main original ancient musical scale that was given to us. And in addition to that, if all of those particular numbers that I named off, the 396, 417, to the Ray, to me, 528. Here's what's interesting about it. I read up on this years ago from a book from a guy named Leonard Horowitz. It's called The Code of Love. If you add any one of those musical scale notes up, you're either going to come up with the number 3, it's either going to add up to the number 6, it's either going to add up to the number 9. So you say, so what? Why is that so important? Well, here's the thing. Tesla, and I know most of you are familiar with Tesla, he used that mathematical string 369 as a lot of his work, and he called it the wave, okay? And so the wave actually is supposed to be connected to the spiral. So everything moves in the universe based on the wave, the spiral, and that also has to do with the 9 ether hair being in the coil, etc. So this 369 equation is one of the levels of the wave. So they are basically telling you that that is one of the mathematic strings that is really, that helps shape the universe. Now, since then, I've also seen other people bring another mathematic string into the equation that also intertwines with the 369, and that helps create like the DNA spiral as well. So whenever you get a moment, start getting up on that ancient scale, read up a little bit on it. You can listen to some of those frequencies and get familiar with them. That is the original musical scale that our ancestors taught us, but the Vatican purposely suppressed it, and they changed it a tad bit, and some say they definitely changed it because they wanted to suppress the vibration on this planet. And as Sis alluded to earlier today, when we were talking just a couple of minutes ago, we also hear the change or the difference in music. And so it is said, I want to say Bobby Hemmett said it, that back after the 70s, the music industry purposely started having the artists change the tones in the music. And they changed it. I used to know it. I used to know what it was. I think now it's a 4/4-0, which is a lower tone than what it used to be. So that is why the music, and in addition to the lyrics, because again, words vibrate, they send out a vibration as well. They have frequency associated with it too. So not only did the frequency tone was lowered purposely, but so was the words of the music. So all this MFSB, this, that, and the third going out in the music with the lower the lower frequency, all of the syntheticness with the music, no more the live bands, the drums, the horns that gave off the high frequency. All of that was shut down in the 70s because supposedly there was a raising of power in the 70s, specifically with the melanated people, with the I'm Black and I'm Proud and Earth, Wind, and Fire coming out with these badass beats that just got to your soul. And you had Parliament and Funk talking about the mothership, and they had the vibration and frequency with the horns, and even James Brown. All of that, although we got down with the get down and made us feel good, we felt it in our soul. That is the reason why we felt it in our soul. It had a higher frequency to it. They were using the higher frequency scale that touched your soul to raise it to a higher vibration. Now the musical scale and tone and vibrations that they are using, it hits your lower chakra, your root chakra. So either two things happen at the root. You either are fighting for protection, or it's sexual. You want to get it on. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that, because we do need that as survival, and that is part of it. But we as beings were not meant to be stuck in that lower root chakra. We are at the point of in the age, and the reason they asked us change the music, because they knew we were coming into the age where everyone's vibration will start to rise to that higher crystal level. So whatever they could do to keep you on that lower vibration scale, to not raise your chakra system and to come into your crystal or your third eye or that crown or that Christ-like state, they were going to do it. So that's why they did it with the music. That's why they hit us with these elf waves to try to keep your vibration at a certain level. Okay, so that was that particular professor, James Gate. He's really tight. I was really happy on that. So if you have a question or comment, press *6 to get in the queue. And if not, we are going to continue on with this. The next one that I wanted to discuss, we're also going to go into even how these particular, and I see you, sweetie, 248. I'm going to come to you before we expound on this, but we're also going to get into how sound, vibration can even turn into these geometric shapes. But before we get into that, I'm going to open up 248. Oh, I'm sorry, sis. Go ahead on, sis.
Okay. What I want to say, and I'm going to take a real good guess at this.
Mm-hmm.
Scale, the do, re, fa, sol, la, ti, do, was used for medicinal purposes to lower blood pressures. And I'm going to guess that they changed it because our people are prone to high blood pressures and strokes.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did that, most of our people had to go on the synthetic medicine they give us. And that, of course, kills us out. And also, comedically, this is not new.
Yes.
They just took our sciences and started making it their own.
Yes, calling it quantum physics now, by the way.
Yeah, it's just quantum physics now. We know that shapes and form makes all energy flow. Because
Tell it, sis. Tell it.
Because of the mathematical proportions in which they use. So when you change a shape, you change the energy flow.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what they're doing, and it's if you look at the Kemetic sciences or the Moorish science directory of mind and reality of numerical explanation, that's how we get the 9 ethers or the 3-6-9 combination.
There you go. Tell it, sis. Yes.
But I went and I studied this, and I'm going to tell you another thing they also do. They read the crop circles with these answers, because who are we? We are the gods, right? So absolutely. They give us crop circles that tells us what's going to befall this planet, and they get all these beautiful, forms and pictures.
Geometric shapes. Yep.
They take it and they read it and see what it actually says.
And they know what it says, because if that brother just told you that you can take those particular shapes and do mathematics to it. And if you could do mathematics to it, you can turn it into language, right?
Mhm.
So they know what them crop circles are saying.
Yep. So according to science, it is these shapes are the base ethereal plasmatic energy of our universe. And
Exactly.
It's universal, so our ancestors and other beings from other areas of the universe, they communicate via those crop circles and the codes of the computer.
Absolutely. And I'm going to go, and I see you 248 and 215. No, you're fine, sis. I'm coming to you. I would go so far as to even say, sis, that even, because we talked about this in the Lost Book of Enki, when the Anunnaki, they were like, had way far advanced technology, but they had us pushing mule and buggies.
Yeah.
Okay, so they chose when they wanted to release this particular technology. So I'm saying all that to say this big computer age, well, number one, our ancestors in Kemet, and I would even go as to say the Kemet over here in South America, we were already doing that with the binary codes. But where we are now, which we're still behind, but what they're releasing, I still say that they are getting it either from the ancient civilizations or it's being given to them by the galactics.
Remember the crystal skulls?
Yes. They showed that in the Indiana Jones movies, too. Yes.
The skulls. See, those were computers.
Interesting. Dang, sis, I'm just really jiving with you tonight because crystals, now I was going to say this story, so now that you said that about them crystal skulls, I wasn't going to tell this story, but now I have to tell it because you didn't brought up the crystal skulls. Crystals have properties of mathematic codes.
That's true.
And this is how I know. I did not know this. I had just really started studying this. This was about 2-3 years ago. And my sister got me into crystals. She said, oh, no, you would really like crystals. So we went to the store and bought up a bunch of crystals. So I set the crystals by me on the nightstand. We were actually out of town. And I set it on the nightstand. I went to sleep, and it was the raw crystals out of the earth. Quartz, very beautiful ones, wasn't even polished yet. And then it had some other metal pieces in there. I know copper was in there and something else. But anyhow, I'm laying in the bed. I woke up out of my sleep because I kept seeing all of these different geometric shapes looking like snowflakes, just different snowflake shapes with these mathematic codes behind it. And it kept being so strong that it woke me up out of my sleep. And I sat up and something said, look over at the crystals. I said, it's these damn crystals.
Yep, they talk to you.
So I had to pick them up. I'm like, dang, boo-boo, that's deep, but you're going to have to go over here. So that's very interesting, and I moved them out the way, out of my range, so I wouldn't be picking up their signal, and I was able to lay back down and go to sleep. So that's very interesting that you say that those crystal skulls was really about a computer.
Exactly. And,
wow.
You know, they were also weapons, because they used them for the laser tip back in the day to destroy armies. And that's one of the ancient stories about Tiamat. And how they fought. You know, the Dogons said they were fighting with crystals.
Wow. So y'all better get up on this crystal stuff. I hope it's not scaring you like hocus pocus. We're putting you up on game on how the universal code works. This is what your ancestors taught you. This is what you already know within your DNA. So start working with crystals. And, me personally, I get my crystal wand on. I don't be effing around. When I want to make something happen, I get that crystal wand, get my little session going, and it's on and popping when you want to make something happen. So this is definitely stuff that I hope that we're introducing you tonight, that you will definitely go back and start doing a little bit more research on your own.
But the preachers say, don't use it. It's voodoo.
Right. You don't use it, but the Pope and them, they behind the scenes bowing down to a black Madonna, and they're trying to do the rituals. And it worked for them for a while because we were at that lower vibration. And the 9 ether beings, it wasn't enough of us to be at a higher vibration to reverse it. And the planet, Mama Earth herself, was at a lower vibration.
Mm-hmm. So
now she raising up. It's enough of us, and I guess we'll find out. Some say that number is 144,000. What that percentage of people are supposed to be of that 9 ether that's awake, and no matter what they do or say, that vibration is staying at that level, and that shuts shit down.
Yeah,
and that's the point that we are at now. So whatever rituals they trying to do, it don't matter, because it's enough of us to be like, well, you could put the shit out there, it's going to dissolve. So that's the state we're at, family.
Exactly.
All right, sis. So I'm going to go to 248. Let me bring you on. All right. Greetings, 248. Uh-oh. 248. Uh-oh. I don't know if you waited too long. Let me try again. 248. Okay, 248. I'll try you again. Okay, let me go to 215. 215.
Hi, greetings. This is Lioness.
Oh, greetings, sis. I'm so happy you joined us tonight. How are you?
I'm great. And what I'm hearing is great because of the fact that now we're syncing up, as in SYNC for synchronicity, to go forward. All of this is about everything that everyone needs, no matter what the level of their understanding or understanding is of themselves or the cosmos. But they can get something from any of this. It has to do with a greater theorem, and I just say, caution people not necessarily to go with an individual as much as take the information from where you must and where you can and where you should. And everything you've said so far is great. I see where you're going. I know where you have to go, and you shall make it there. I just say broaden it. When I mentioned last week, and I was going to leave this to the end, not to, interject in your thing, because I knew you would lay it out there wonderfully, is the fact that there's a guy called Dr. Gabriel Oyibo, Oyaibo. Now, notice his name is Gabriel. Gabriel. They will not give him the Nobel Peace Prize or the Nobel Science Prize because he has come up with, but he acknowledges that it came from his ancestors and from the Most High to be the Gabriel for right now. This out there so that every layer of individual and being and entity whatsoever will get the positivity from this. It's called Gagut, Gagut. Now, what Dr. Gates is doing, and I'm going to preface this later. I don't want to take too much time because I know you have to get yours out and
That's okay, sis. Go ahead.
Know that Dr. Gates is a theoretical physicist. Theory is not proven, albeit what you've gone over so far is absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
But Dr. Oyibo is an astrophysicist, and he deals in theorems. Theorems are proven theories, and his Gagut, and it's not his, it's all of ours. So everybody, if you want to take it as yours, please do, because that's what the Most High Mother, Father, wants right now.
There you go.
Is to claim yourself, and you can do everything with this. So we can interrelate as the time goes on for what time is left. It also has to do with the SOL and the SUL, which is the fifth dimension, which is that fire this time.
There and you go.
All of this lets you heal from the numbers and the letters, not just the letters, as Boo Boo was saying, okay? And I mean no disrespect. I mean respects to everybody. Just broaden it, and everybody can get what they need to ascend now. So I thank you, and there's just some books and stuff like that go with this. Honor each who do what they do, and then honor yourself by knowing that you're just none the less than anybody else, and you can get all of this because it will start to go ping, and it'll get that sound, and you will get all of the scale. You'll go to the octave. You'll learn the laws of 1, 3, and 7, and you will become the God that you were before in the first. So
tell it, sis.
Tell
it. Thank you, sis. Love you. Peace and love. That's sis Lioness, boy. She be putting it down, and she also does shows, I know, on Wednesday, Saturday, sometimes Friday, and I try to post out on the Truth Uncompromised Facebook page when her shows are going to be. So I definitely encourage you all to check it out. Sis is just a wealth of information, and I definitely respect her, and I'm so glad she comes in and chimes in and, give us that validation. And is interesting because we, sis and I, we don't talk like that and go back and forth on, what we're going to do on each particular individual shows. It just so happens that we always seem to converge on the same path. And I know she had sent me the particular information on Brother Gabriel, and I hadn't had time to get to it. So I'm definitely going, that's not the first time I've heard of him, so I'm definitely going to have to bring him on in as well. So thanks, Sis Lioness. Okay, family, so we're now going to move into, and dang, it's 9:28. Dang, time fly when you're having fun. Okay, we might have to do a part two to this, but I also want us to start to realize how deep that the mathematics, the shape, sound, vibrations go, because you can literally take vibrations or sound and you can, quote, reprogram water. You can also take a vibration or sound and you can physically see, and they have proven this with science, and you could go on YouTube and get these particular videos where particular vibrations and tones will actually change into these geometric shapes. So we are going to go into a video for a little bit, and it's called Sacred Knowledge of vibrations in water. So this is a quick clip, only about 8 minutes. And then we're going to stop and see if there's any more folk in the phone line, and then we're probably going to have to wrap it up. We're probably not going to have time for the rest of it. So hold on a second. This one is called Sacred Knowledge of Vibration and Water, and it's off the YouTube channel Periyad VidWorks. Okay, so hold on a second, family. Let me get this for you. Okay.
That you're going to see. And in this water droplet, a frequency is being pumped into this water droplet. As the frequency is mirrored in the droplet, you'll actually see the geometric patterns in that droplet. Now what's happening, and the reason that this is so significant, is because we're going to do a frequency sweep. We're going to go from low frequencies to higher frequencies. And what you'll find is this. You'll see that in the lower frequencies, the patterns are less complex. And in the higher frequency, the patterns are more complex. So we're going through a sweep from lower to higher frequency. I'm sharing this with you now because Earth is essentially going through a frequency sweep. Our fundamental pulse, our base pulse that has hovered around 7.8 cycles per second, now is changing. And again, there's a lot of controversy about what the change is, and we're witnessing the change. As we go through our planetary shift of this pulse, patterns of energy must change to respond to that, just as patterns of energy in this water are changing to respond to this pulse. And we'll begin with simply the concentric patterns in the water. As the frequency begins, every once in a while we'll reach a key threshold resonance, such as that moment right there. And in that key threshold resonance, the entire pattern morphed into a more complex expression of itself, simply because the frequency changed. Now watch what happens. The frequency is still increasing. Now watch what happens. As we reach another key threshold resonance, this entire pattern will morph into a beautifully and more complex pattern of itself. Again and again. And look at this pattern right here. Look what you're seeing right here. Look at the beautiful geometry. Here is a perfect cube. There's a perfect tetrahedron, a star tetrahedron. In 2 dimensions, we've got the octahedron. Very powerful images of sacred geometry held in place simply because we've achieved the vibratory pattern that allows that in this water droplet. And as the vibration increases, these patterns will become more and more complex. You can see the pulse from where you are. Can you see the pulse actually in the water? As we go into the last set of the frequencies, what you'll see is that the entire, and you'll watch along the outer perimeter, the entire pattern reaches its greatest level of complexity, and then it goes back, as the frequencies drop, it goes back to what it was, the concentric circles, as it was originally. It almost looks alive. You know, you've been offered many times the concept that thought is vibration. Have you ever considered that emotion is vibration? Feeling is vibration. We are always feeling something. We are always emoting something. We may not always be aware of what that is. We carry those patterns with us. As we hold a feeling and an emotion, what we're doing is we are holding a vibratory pattern in the liquid crystal of our bodies.
Feel has now been scientifically shown to be provable. And what you're going to see now are what happens to particles of sand and other various particles when a sound resonates across a plate and resonates those particles in tune with the sound. Because when we think, we're not just sending out a wave which resonates the energy, we're sending out on a frequency outside of the range of human hearing, we're sending out a sound. Everything is sound. When we think a sound goes out, it resonates the energy around us to that sound. And what you're about to see are some pictures that show this happening when sound is introduced, and how sound takes random particles and turns it into astonishing form. And that's how this universe was created. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was sound. So what you're looking at here is merely particles formed into patterns by sound. They were all over the place to start with, just in random positions on the plate. As soon as the sound appears, they form into these patterns, because everything is sound, and it is sound that turns matter and energy into form. Patterns on wings of birds and insects are all the manifestation of the sound vibrations. Every organ in our body resonates to a certain frequency. And when our thoughts and emotions and stress and the vibrations that causes de-harmonize the vibrational state of our various parts of our body, we become ill. So we think ourselves into illness because we're affecting the vibrational state of the body. And so every time you think and feel, you're resonating a frequency which is making the energy around you resonate to the same frequency. What you give out is what you create. Here you're seeing mini galaxies just formed by particles and sound. This is how the galaxies and the universe and the solar systems were formed and continue to be held in the structure they're in through sound. If the sound changes, the matter changes, the energy changes. So when you look at what it says in texts like even the Old Testament, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was sound. And sound is everything. When you think and feel, you're creating sound. This is how the heart beats at a certain resonance. All you're looking at here are interacting frequencies making a beat. And so while the frequency of the heart is at the right level, it beats in the normal number of beats a minute. But when we become stressed, we affect that frequency and the heart beats faster. And so everything is sound, even the human heartbeat, and the interacting frequencies that make it happen. And we've seen the galaxies, and now here are the planets forming, just on a plate from particles caused by sound passing through them. This planet has a resonant frequency. It's called the Schumann cavity resonance. But basically, while that frequency holds, the planet will hold its present form. If the frequency changes, the form will change. It's the same with everything. And here you see sound being passed through iron filings and particles, and therefore creating form once again. And from these pictures, it's hardly difficult to see how the human body is formed through sound resonating energy, and how that physical form is held as long as that sound matrix is held. But once that changes, the physical body changes. So there you've seen, with stunning effect, how sound creates form, how galaxies are created, how planets are created. And all those planets, balls of particles, all those revolving galaxies were merely particles turned into that form by sound.
All right, family. So that particular video is called Sacred Knowledge of Vibrations and Water, and the YouTube channel is Periyad VidWorks, Periyad Vid, VID Works, WORKS. So if you want to get in on the last tad bit of the conversation, press *6 to get in the queue. So what I also wanted to point out with that particular clip, a couple of things for us to put into everyday practice, because the video pretty much was talking about how they have scientifically proven, and you can definitely go to YouTube, and not just this video, just pull up in general. They use water, and I've seen them use salt, and I've also seen them use sand, and they play these frequency tones, and when they play them, they start changing it to geometric shapes. Let's go to the water. Now, this is just everyday practice. When our parents taught us to pray over our food before we eat it, and their mindset, they're telling us to pray to give thanks to the quote God. Okay, so of course that could still be part of it. You are giving thanks to the prime source creators, mother and father, creator of all, mother and father. But you are also emitting, because even thoughts, what hopefully you've learned tonight, that even your thoughts have a vibrational frequency. So depending on what thought you put out there is what frequency you're going to resonate at. So if you're putting out love, you're putting out positivity, you're praying over your food, you're praying over your water, you're essentially breathing that particular vibrational frequency into your food. That's why Grandma and them would always say, when you drop something on the ground, you pick it up real quick. Girl, kiss it and pray on it. You will be okay. We may not have realized what they were saying, but that's exactly what they were saying. Even with water, if you emit positive love frequency, it has been proven that you can literally change the structure of water with your words, with your thoughts. It has been scientifically proven that you can do this. I did a little test. I dropped my crystal in the water after I used salt to clean it out, set it in the sun to get energy, dropped one of my quartz crystal in that water. Boy, I was bouncing off the wall with so much energy. So these are just some of the things that I wanted to point out, the importance of us to start to enter and understand this sacred knowledge and how important vibrations are with your words, with your thoughts. So we do have a caller. Let me get 256. Let me open up your line. 256, your line is open.
Thank you for letting me back in, Rhonda. The first time I heard anything like this about every one of your organs have a unique vibration, I was following Kevin Trudeau before they threw him in jail.
Oh, yeah. I remember, dude. Yeah.
Kevin Mark Trudeau doing 10 years in Montgomery, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what it is? It's a Maxwell Air Force Base and also a FEMA camp.
What? I heard he had got locked up because he did something extensively on the medical field and how we could heal ourselves. And then I know he did something else, if I'm not mistaken, for real estate. But next thing I know, they had said dude had been locked up, and I hadn't heard no more on him.
Yeah, the books that he were putting out had to do with health and natural food and natural and these other products that'll help you heal and whatever. The book that supposedly have gotten him in trouble was this diet book. Showed you how you could correct your own chemistry. It's a process you go through. They said he overstepped his boundaries. See, he was convicted of not complying with a court order, they fined him like $35 million.
Oh, wow.
Said that, and he saw it as freedom of speech. He gave his own opinion that he tried the process, and he gave his own opinion that he thought it was easy.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the Federal Food and Drug Administration, whatever they initial,
FDA, you right. Mm-hmm.
They brought suit against him for fraud and fined him. First, it was like $10 million. He said, "I'm not paying it. It's freedom of speech." They banned him, his infomercials, and blah blah blah. He was fighting it, so he was found guilty. That last court thing, he was found guilty for federal. When you don't obey a court order, it's called, I forget what it's called, but that's what he was found guilty of, not obeying the original court orders and paying. Then they fined him $35 million, and they put him in jail for 10 years down here in Montgomery, Alabama, in the Maxwell Air Force Base, and it's a FEMA camp. Now, if anybody know anything about Kevin Trudeau, he always emphasized fight is a negative. You neutralize. You're neutral. Or you go for the higher energy. You don't go for fight. So you look at these attorneys who are collecting money supposedly on his behalf to fight his case, or, still pursue his case, get him out. You look at that web page, they have it on Facebook, and supposedly he's still writing articles. Do you read that? Like someone was saying, you get to understand how people write and the flow of their thoughts. And the caption on his, he has his picture on it, and the caption on it is, "Help Kevin Trudeau fight, blah, blah, blah." I knew it wasn't Kevin.
Got you, because you have followed him enough.
I followed him.
Would be like somebody trying to tell me what Dr. Blair said or Bobby Hemmett. I got you.
Okay. I came aboard. He started a brand new organization called GIN, G-I-N. And when I was in California, I joined as a member. And that was right before the final battle in Chicago, when he was when he was coming up against a court case and they wasn't letting him go. I took the free cruise. When you became a member, you got a free cruise. I took the free cruise in January, and the next year it was all out. They were, now don't forget, Kevin Trudeau was in all the secret societies, all of them, the Brotherhood.
Now that I did not know. Interesting.
He went through all of them.
Well, that's how he learned it then.
Yes. And a group of them worldwide decided that they were going to bring this information public. And see, this information is old. It's not new, but they kept it from us, okay? And he was going to share it with the people because he believed that the people deserve to be free and to be in control of their own. See, it's your thoughts. Your thoughts manifesting bring about your conditions. So
that's right.
In his series of books, of course, I bought them, and his last set of tapes is 14 tapes. It's a series. But it's about raising your vibrational level. And you just listen to each tape, and then when you finish those 14 tapes, then you start over and listen to them again. Maybe listen an hour a day, whatever. But each time, your vibration is going up and up and up. So I believe they came against Kevin. Why? Because this is his punishment. He left all those secret societies and came out in the public. Second, he was coming against the pharmaceuticals, and we know the cabal, that's their bread and butter.
Right.
And third, he had organized worldwide. He had organized an organization worldwide, and people were, it was just magnificent, all I can say. It was magnificent what Kevin and his group was doing. So I was shocked that he actually got a 10-year sentence. I thought, now this is the last point I wanted to make about Kevin Trudeau. Kevin Trudeau, filthy, stinking rich. All his friends and associates, filthy, stinking rich. Okay? I can understand he refused to pay, to pay because it was extortion and whatever, right? The $35 million or whatever, okay? Why are these attorneys now collecting the monies? Because on the site there's a link that you can donate, and it's all going through this attorney firm, okay? Supposedly you get this free monthly newsletter that Kevin is writing. That's the basis of your donation, okay?
To
why are
allegedly
they collecting?
help him.
Yeah, why? I believe they're holding him hostage and milking the public.
Absolutely.
But I don't even believe Kevin exists anymore because that's a FEMA camp.
Wow, yeah, that's
You understand what I'm saying? Either he's cloned, they done killed him, he's cloned, or they've done so much damage to him, he'll never be Kevin again.
Wow.
You
but
know,
sis, well, thank you. I'm so glad, sis, and I see you 832. I'm so glad you came back in the queue and told me that. I did not know all of that jumped off with Kevin Trudeau, and I did not know that he was in them secret societies. So that means he got his hands on that high level of information. And here's the thing about them secret societies, family. They make it clear when you take that oath, because all of them have an oath, you have to stick by that oath. And when you are in a secret society, if you break that oath, there is consequences to that oath. Now, if he was in and which I do believe, which makes sense why they came after him so strong, if he was in those secret societies with that high ranking, that means he went against his oath. And so they had to shut him down because of that, because he had took that oath with them.
And one last point, it was Bobby Hennett, like you said, that mentioned that about the music. He also said how they changed the equipment.
Yes.
So remember the earlier music? Now you can't even get that same sound because the equipment that you're playing it on won't allow that to come through. So he
won't allow that resignation. Exactly.
He emphasized both. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sis Amira. Wow, love you. That was excellent. I did not know that. Very, very interesting. Okay, 832. Let me bring you in, sweetie. 832, your line is open. I think it is.
Love, peace, truth, freedom, and justice.
Greetings, beloved. Greetings.
I know my voice may be horrible, but let me get this little ditty out and you tell me where it came from.
You cool.
So, a deer, a female deer, raised a drop of golden sun.
Oh, man, I remember that.
The name I call myself, far a long, long way to run. So, a needle pulling thread, I look to follow souls.
Wow.
Tea I drink with jam and bread that will bring us back to do. What are those white people up on the mountains and the sound of music?
Yeah, and then here's the tripped out part about it. When you were singing it, I just traveled back in time, y'all. And they
programming. That's part of the reason why I wanted to say that first, to see.
Yeah, but they would teach that in music class.
Yes, our programming. Then you go with the duck walk and duck goose and all this other thing that Caucasoidal Europeans have infected our brains.
Wow, I remember that. And in music class, they had the different people whose voice resonated with that tone would hit those different parts. They would sing those different parts, rather. Very interesting.
What do they tell us an octave is? What number is that?
Is that 8? Yeah, that's 8.
And what is 8 as a number? turn it on its side, it's
That's
infinity.
infinity, right.
And
That's
it also
infinity.
means change.
Yes.
8 is the number of change, right? And change is infinite, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, one last thing on the number side, because I'm a geek. My mother was a math teacher. 1111, do you know what that is in digital? In binary, that adds up to 15. 15, 1 and 5 is number 6. And
6.
What is the number 6 supposed to be?
The
number of man.
The number of man, exactly. That's interesting. Now, I would have had to calculate those.
Referred to that way, as you mentioned earlier today. I did
not
know
yeah.
It was a manifestation on the metaphysics.
Yeah, but I'm glad you calculated the binary, because I would have had to get out the little calculation. And
it's 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8.
Yes.
Those are the first 4, sections. A byte is 8.
Yes. And anybody that wants to learn that, I'm a geek like you. I just went back in time, a couple of weeks ago, and started back going over how to calculate the binary code. Now, mind you, I took the class in college, and the sister taught it. She pissed me off because she could have taught it totally different. I almost flunked the damn class. But now I look at it and go, well, why the hell didn't she just teach it this way? So anybody that want to learn how to do that.
That becomes the next thing when you talk about pedagogy. People go, what the hell is pedagogy? Pedagogy means basically the manner in which instruction is given. And, you have people who are auditory, who are visual, who are tactile. And basically that means they go by hearing, by seeing, or by touch, or combination of the three.
Which is the best way.
When you're talking spatial, I know we start using terminology, we have to break it down to those who are listening, lay people, is in the three-dimensional way that we are told our experience is in reality. We claim we live in 3D. So that means height, depth, and width, primarily. But you know what the three-dimensional triangle is? That's actually in 4 dimensions, is the pyramid, right?
Yes.
Because there's actually 4 sides. You have 3 triangles that make a point. Then you have the base. It's the base triangle that holds up the 3 triangles for the structure. But the spatial dynamics is the internal part of whatever the structure is, right?
Yes.
So if we're being taught linear as opposed to spatial, Ron, because it was very hard to get that message. I appreciate what you're doing, but you're doing it on one level. You're doing auditory because we were listening to the audio of a videotape.
Right.
And you're listening to an instructor that was using models, which presumably would have been suspended in a 3D format.
Yes, and that's why I encourage people to go back and look at the video because it'll make a lot more. They'll get a lot more value out of it. Absolutely.
But if you go and keep things in a linear context, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., as opposed to what is a spatial dynamic would be bringing more sensory input simultaneously.
Yes.
You follow me?
Yes.
And it may even encompass those separate pedagogies. See, again, part of our problem is this European construct that we've been immersed in.
Yes.
Where it breaks things down, feeds them in bites, puts them in a separate order.
Yes.
And doesn't necessarily put them in a correct order.
Right. Which is like the hardest way to teach stuff and then expect someone to master it. So in other words, family, they make it 100 times harder than it needs to be. And that's not how our ancestors taught us.
Well, let's stick with that point for a second, Russ, about why do you make something more complex as opposed to simple? You make people forced to ask someone else outside of oneself. You go and ask an expert. They love throwing that term out, don't they?
Exactly, that they're the quote expert. And it keeps the knowledge from people because they know that people would get frustrated and then say in their mind, it's too hard, I can't do it.
and you've been taught only one path. So will you go learn another way?
Very, very much so true, because I even got into a couple of weeks ago, I ran across some video on how even ancient mathematics was taught, which was totally different and a lot easier than what we were taught for multiplication, fractions, division, and all of that. And I was just shaking my head like, wow, and then when we ran across Brother James Gate tonight, and when you, hopefully some of you will go back and visually look at that video, and you see how he's using the geometric shapes and how he's telling you that is doing calculus, that's doing trigonometry, that's doing algebra. It clicked to me. I'm like, wow, the way that they taught us that European way is totally bull crap. And I heard from the master teacher, Phil Valentine, that a lot of it was that's how they were able to learn. But that may not that's not how the melanated people learn. That's how they have to break stuff down bite by bite by bite, and hopefully they can put the pieces together to get the bigger picture.
Now think about deconstruction, reconstruction, as opposed to creativity, which is creation out of nothing. All right.
Out of nothing.
So the first thing you have to do, if you got to take something bite by bite by bite. Remember we talked last week about the three substances I was sharing with you about flour, sugar, and salt?
Yes.
And how all the manufacturing processes we have, especially in this Caucasoidal experience called America, is to strip things down, bleach things out, and then so-called fortify them. How can you put stuff back in when you really don't know exactly what you took out?
Exactly. And you took all the natural essence out, and you want to put back in it something that's unnatural, and then they want to play crazy about why the food.
No, they tell you the new improved would imply that it's better than what was natural.
And we know that it's not, because our level of nutrition has gone down the damn tube. We're not getting the same nutritional value as grandma and them got out of the food.
Well, the part of their process is to destruct first. Deconstruct, destroy.
Very good point.
Damage, demolition, and then reconstruct. Well, you've already tore something up, which means you don't know exactly all the pieces that you tore apart.
Very good point.
You put it back, it's not going to be reconstructed the way it was originally. You have a process of destruction by definition, because you have to tear something apart, right?
Very good point. Touche. Yes.
And then where do you ever get to a point of, well, how are we constructing? Meaning, how are we making something kind of like a certain people for over 5 centuries? Out of nothing?
Mm-hmm.
Mother Wit used to say from the old school. Invention, invention is the mother of necessity. Necessity is the mother of invention. I got it backwards there for a bit. But
very good.
The point I'm making is that, all things out of life is from creation, not destruction. And we're dealing with a people whose own experience from the beginning is to destroy.
Right. But that's because that God particle, that 9 ether, is missing. The 9 ether beings are the creators. I'm going to say that again. The 9 ether beings are the creators. So if we want something on this planet, this realm, whether it be this realm or any other realm to change, we have to make it change. And we've already discussed tonight how you do that, with your thoughts, with your words, and you shut the whole thing down. We are the creators. But very good, very, very good point, brother.
And I'll leave you with one last analogy
Absolutely.
In the sense of the double helix of what we call DNA. It is usually portrayed in a three-dimensional image of what is considered a spiral staircase. And actually, there's some things you might think about, Stairway to Heaven and some other songs. That
Jacob's Ladder, yes.
Okay, all right. Now, do you know straight hair? I'm going to tell you a dichotomy. Irony.
I know where you're going with that, but don't.
Is when you analyze it under a microscope, is coiled, not what you conceptually think is straight. In other words, straight line. So the hair to actually be in a straight position, it is in a coil wrap. The straight path is the curly hair.
Yes.
In other words, hair that you think is coiled, under a microscope, is flat and straight. Think about it just for a moment. Maybe that's why the DNA strand is coiled for us to be in a straight fashion.
Very good. Wow. That's deep. That's very deep, brother. Love that analogy. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, brother. You got anything else, any more words of wisdom?
As we part on this so-called farce called a presidential election, you're on the air.
Right.
You might want to see some clips from the Al Smith dinner where both of them were in attendance of the Catholic Vatican Jesuit order. Tonight.
See what I'm saying?
See what you think about the jokes and the barbs that they
okay,
back
what's the name of it again? I may even stomach it.
The Al Smith dinner that was on broadcast on Fox, CNN. While you were on the air, I was watching that while I was listening to you.
Okay, Al Smith dinner. Okay.
Even if you just get the excerpts of each of their speeches, and how they went and attacked each other through their jokes, I'll wait to see what you have to say on that next week.
Okay, I'll definitely pull that. So, okay then, brother. Well, thank you as always. Peace and love, beloved. Thank you as always. Love it, love it, love it. Love that brother's analogy. So, okay, family. So we are basically concluding. So I am going to pick up a little bit more on this next week. I want to bring in beloved Gabriel as Sis Lioness. Mentioned we still have a few other things I want us to go over on this topic. I feel it's important. I know we got into sound, vibrations. We're also going to talk about how this ties to the law of attraction, and we're also going to talk about next week how this ties into the matrix. So we're going to do a part 2 on this. So again, I want to thank you, family, for joining us. And again, the callers, the family of callers, y'all rocked as usual. Woo, you brought a lot of insight. So I so appreciate it. So we are going to be back next week. I do want to make another announcement. I'm going to keep reminding the family that I am going to switch platforms. I'm just going to have to break down and go to Blog Talk Radio. So we're going to go to that sometime next month. It'll probably be in the middle of the month, but I will be making an announcement. So it should be a lot better for you all. You don't have to worry about getting charged extra on your phone bill for some of those that are being charged extra on their phone bill or getting knocked off the damn call and all of that. And plus, we'll have a chat on Blog Talk. So start getting prepared for that. I do want to put that message out early to the family. So we will be back next week. We're going to do a part 2 to this. So I am going to sign off saying peace, love, truth, freedom, and justice, one heart, one mind, and one spirit. And with that, I'm going to say nightfall, and we are going to rock out with some music. Love you much, family.